I'm so delighted to be with you. You know, I started off my career in copywriting when I was 21 years old, so I've always had a love for copywriting, a love for advertising, and I so much love and respect you for all the work that you've done to become excellent in this area. I mean, you're the best. You're the best. I was 21 years old. I did not graduate from high school. I started so far behind I thought I was first. I was working at laboring jobs for respect you for all the work that you've done to become excellent in this area. I mean, several years, and then I saw an ad in the paper. It said, copywriter requires, a beautiful ad. Copywriter required a person who can make words express and flow and motivate and excite people and everything else. I thought, that'd be a great field to get into. So I went and applied to this little advertising agency for a job as a copywriter. And they, gentleman, I still remember, very nice guy, very bright, very smart, very articulate, well-educated, well-spoken. But I didn't even know what a copywriter was. I thought a copywriter was a person who created ads and pictures and all kinds of things. I had no idea, but he was very patient with me. And he said, why do you want to become a copywriter? Have you thought of something else? Because you really don't know anything about the field. And I was kind of put off. I was selling door to door at that time. So I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. He was very gentle with me and so on. So I went down to the library and I got a book on copywriting. And I began to read the book on copywriting. I finally understood what copywriting was, which is something that we eventually get to. And so I read, and I looked at different copy, then I read another book, and I read another book, and I began just literally totally immersed myself in studying copy, and studying the best advertisements of all time, and the way that they were written, and the various emotional appeals, and so on. And so once I figured I had a sense for it, in the city that I was working in, this agency that I'd applied to is like number 10. Okay, I also found out the rankings of various agencies. So then I went to agency number 9, and I applied for a job as a copywriter. And this time they listened, and I had written a couple of things, taken a couple of ads from the paper and rewritten them and so on. They thanked me very much, and they said that really was not what they were looking for. And I said, well, why not? They said, well, it's because of this and because of that and so on. So I said, thank you very much. I went back and I kept reading and writing, and after another month I went to the 8th largest agency. And I worked my way up the food chain. I got rejected, 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 rejected. But each time the rejections were less. Each time they were, if we had an opening, we would hire you. Finally, I got to the 2nd largest agency in the country, and they hired me as a junior copywriter. Because by that time I was ready. And the day before, the person who had the job was quitting. And so the day before I was ready to start as a copywriter with this major agency, I got a call saying, we're sorry, the other person decided to stay. And so we have to cancel your job offer. But we've spoken to the head of the largest agency in the country and told them about how impressed we are with you, and they just happened to have an opening, so I was hired by the largest agency in the country as a junior copywriter. Yeah. And I pass that story on not just for myself, but I pass it on because there's a lot of persistence required in this business. I just spoke to a gentleman, I was in Taipei last week, and I spoke to a gentleman named Terry Chang. And they brought him over to meet with me for half an hour, a big mucky muck from out of the country. Terry Chang is an entrepreneurial phenomenon. He's the Jeff Bezos, if you know of Amazon.com, of Taiwan. And 11 years ago, he went back to Taiwan after getting a degree in the U.S. to start a business, and he decided to start what he calls Books.com, which is the equivalent of Amazon.com in the Chinese book language, of which there are many thousands of books. And he had to start off, he said there were 6,000 publishers. He had to get them to give him the rights to sell their books. And they were all very proprietary. They didn't want to allow their books out of their control because they wouldn't make the same amount of profit. Well, he had to knock on doors and knock on doors and knock on doors. He had to go from one to another, year after year after year. He had to beg, borrow, steal. He had to sell off, hypothecate every single part of his business. He said he kept working and working and working. It took him 7 years before he finally got most of the major book publishers to allow him to carry his books. He said it took him 6 years of calling on the number 3 publisher before they finally said yes. They said no for 6 years. It was only in the 7th year they gave him the right to carry the books. After that, the others all got on board. He's now the 3rd largest bookseller in Taiwan, probably the 3rd largest bookseller in the Chinese language. Within a year, he'll be number 2. Within 3 years, he'll be number 1. He's been in the business 11 years now, hammering away. So sometimes people, surprisingly enough, will say no to you. the first couple of times, and you just have to realize that you just have to keep calling back. He said if he had quit after he had been told no a few hundred times, he said he'd never accomplished anything. Now he's got 200 people. He's a phenomenon. He's written up in all the newspapers. He's wealthy. He's got a beautiful home. He said his wife just hung in there the whole time because it was real slim going for a long time, but he just never quit. And every single time I talk to a successful person, I ask them, what's the secret to your success? You know what they'll tell you? Is I just don't quit. I won't quit. I wouldn't quit. I just kept on. I never quit. So I pass that on to you. If you want to boil down success to just one thing, it's not intelligence or education or great grades or wonderful things. It's just never quitting. So today I want to talk to you about pumping up your profits. And I know Denise has told me and Michael has told me that you're some of the smartest people in America. Is that true? So you can take a lot of good ideas in a short period of time. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to sort of be your profit pumping up buffet for today. So I'm going to give you a lot of ideas, and some will be relevant to you, and some will be not as relevant, but they will be a buffet. And you can pick whichever ones you think will help you to put on your plate to increase your profits. Because I believe that everybody here should be earning twice as much as they're earning today. As Joe said earlier, everybody here has the one concern: you don't ever want to have to worry about money again. Isn't that true? And the way that you don't worry about money is you have lots of it. See, I mean, in case you were wondering how you got to that, you have lots of it. And nobody worries about having too much. It's not a problem. It's having too little that is the problem. So I'll give you some ideas and your goal is to double your income. Just say, I want to double my income. I spoke to someone. Where are you? Christina, are you here? Are you here? Spoke to her. Yeah, there she is. I spoke to her at breakfast today, and when she started using my material, one of the concepts she told me, she came across this idea, is the amount you earn on the outside is largely determined by the way you think on the inside. So if you want to increase your income on the outside, increase the way you think about your income on the inside. So she did, and she doubled her income and doubled it again and doubled it again. She just kept raising her mental bar on the inside. And what happens is, like Joe will talk about the law of attraction, the secret is that you'll start to attract into your life people, opportunities, and ideas like today that will help you to achieve that financial goal. So whatever your best income has been up to now, set a goal to earn twice as much. Now, the rule in metaphysics, the rule in spirituality is be clear about your goal, but be flexible about the way of achieving it. Be flexible about the path that you follow. Be prepared to try lots of different paths. But be clear about your goal. Your goal is to double your income. Once you've doubled your income, then what's your goal? Double it again, of course. But you know, it's doubling your income the second time is much easier than doubling it the first time, and I'll tell you why. It's because now you know how. Now you know how. The great benefit that you get from increasing your income is you learn how to do it. And then you just do more and more of it and get better and better at it and get more and more results in shorter and shorter time. Well, we know today we're living in the very best time in all of human history. We're living in the very best country in the entire world. If you listen to the stuff in the politics today, I call this the silly season. The silly season is on, and we are beset by most ads are attack ads. 90% of ads are negative. People are saying, oh, America's in terrible shape, blah, 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 blah. But they're saying this for political reasons. The fact is our economy, since the tax cuts of 2003, has increased 30%. It went from a $10 trillion economy, which is 30% of the entire world, with 5% of the population, to a $13 trillion economy in 4 years. That is phenomenal. No one has ever seen growth like this in all of human history. The stock market is at the highest level it's ever been. Something like 20 million new people have entered the stock market, have entered the work market in the last 6 years, and we have a problem with 12 million illegals because we cannot find enough people to take all the jobs that are available. The level of home ownership is over 70%, the highest in any country in the history of man on earth. We have the highest standards of living ever dreamed of. We have more opportunities and possibilities than have ever been dreamed of before, and you are right here. You're right here in the midst of this. Yet, with all of this, here's what we know, is that 20% of the people make 80% of the money. When I started off my career as a young man, somebody told me that, you know, that 20% of people make 80% of the money. I said, really? He said, yes, that's a fact. And of course, it's the Pareto principle and so on. So I decided I want to be a member of the 20%. And I still remember that. I was about 23 years old. I said, well, if you can go down this road to the bottom 80% or that road to the top 20%, I think I'd like to be in the top 20%. So the next question I ask is, how do you get into the top 20%? And fortunately, Joe has written about this, and Herschel has written about this, and Michael Masterson has written about this. The answers have all been found. If you want to get into the top 20%, there's a very simple rule. Are you ready? Just do what people who are in the top 20% are doing. And do it over and over again until you get there as well. If I said to you, if you want to get from here to Miami Beach, a very simple way is just follow the same roads that anybody else would follow to get from here to Miami Beach, because jillions of people have already done it. The dumbest thing in the world is to try to make it up yourself. So that's what I will share with you. Now, there's an article in Fortune magazine that says the top 5% of Americans control 50% of American wealth. Actually, we used to say that 80% of the money in America is controlled by women. And they know how to get their hands on the other 20% in a pinch. Which turns out to be a true statement. But because women live much longer than men. It's very simple. And they automatically inherit what the men leave. So they wait long enough, they'll end up getting it all. Anyway, that's a separate subject. So here's the interesting discovery, is that everybody starts off at the bottom. I used to feel sorry for myself because I started off with nothing. I had no money. I lived in my car. Like Joe, I was homeless for a while. I lived in my car. I worked at laboring jobs. I slept on the ground. I never missed a meal, but I did postpone quite a few of them indefinitely. And once I lost 30 pounds just through careful eating. Or not eating. Anyway, and I used to feel sorry for myself because I started off with nothing, and then I realized everybody starts off with nothing. Everybody starts off with little or nothing. And if anybody starts off with something, they blow it completely, as quickly as they can, get back to nothing. As a matter of fact, in America, whenever you make any money, the first thing people do, turn off your phone, is to blow it. Is we get rid of the money. So Napoleon Hill, you know, there's a new book by Andrew Carnegie. Napoleon Hill was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to interview 500 of the richest men in America, all self-made, all started with nothing within one generation. And so he spent 22 years interviewing these people, and he came up with 3 conclusions. Number one is they all had certain qualities and skills in common, especially skills with regard to their fields in common. Number 2 is no one started with these skills. Many of them were penniless immigrants. Many of them came from farms and poor families. No one started with any of these skills. And number 3, all the skills are learnable. Of course, you know that because of the American Writers and Artists Guild. You know that all skills are learnable. But this was an incredible breakthrough to me, is you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any success that you want to achieve. And if hundreds of thousands and millions of people have already done it, then you can do it as well. And 80% of all self-made millionaires in America start off selling personal services. Did you know that? They start off selling their own services. They start off with nothing. They have no assets. So they sell their own services, and they get better and better at selling their services, and they increase their value more and more. They increase their income, and then they do intelligent things with the money. They don't blow it. You know. Remember, I saw this bumper sticker recently. It said, "Dear God, please send us one more boom. This time I promise not to piss it all away." You know, well, anybody knows what I'm talking about there. Anyway, so I began studying business and financial success, and I found a very interesting discovery is that businesses succeed for a specific reason, and they fail for a specific reason as well. So here's a question for you. How many people here work on straight commission? How many people here work on sales or work on straight commission? Now that's a kind of a trick question, because the answer is we all work on straight commission. We're all in sales, and we all work on commission. We all work on getting a piece of the value that we create. The number one rule for becoming wealthy or financially successful in America or anywhere else is add value. Add value, create value, add value. And when we create and we add value, we get a piece for ourselves. And the more value we create, the bigger is the piece that we get. When Joe talks about earning $450,000 in one commercial, he's created value. People gave him money because he created value for them, and they gave it to him voluntarily, and they gave it to him gladly because of the value he created. So always remember, we are all on commission. We are all in sales. From the time you take your first job to the time you retire, you're the president of your own company, and you're in sales. You're the president of an entrepreneurial company with one employee, yourself, and you have one product to sell into a competitive market. What is it? Yourself, your own time. That's basically what everybody starts off with. Don't feel sorry for yourself. The only question is not where you are, but as we say, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. All that really matters is where you're going. So, and where you're going is limited only by your own imagination. So here's the second question. What's the highest paid work in America? Well, the highest paid work in America is thinking. And the wonderful thing is that you are knowledge workers. You are knowledge workers. So you're at the front of the line. Is that the highest paid work in America is thinking, because of what? And it's because of one of my favorite words, and you need to think of this word for the rest of your career. The word is the word consequences. is you can always tell the value of something by the consequences of doing it or not doing it. Now, you know this because you have invested an enormous amount of time and effort to develop your skills in copy, in advertising, internet marketing, and so on. You realize you're one of the 5%, the elite, that realizes the way that you improve your future is by getting more knowledge and skill in the present, investing the time and the hours and the money to learn the things, because the consequences of learning these critical skills and then getting better and better at them can be extraordinary. They can make all the difference between you having a wonderful life, living in a beautiful home, having money in the bank, retiring with a happy retirement for the rest of your life, or worrying about money all your life. So consequences are important. So thinking is the highest paid skill of all. And the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. If you want to improve the quality of your life, you improve the quality of your thinking. Well, Calvin Coolidge once made this famous statement, which you've heard of. He said, the business of America is business. What we do in business is, what we do in America is we do business. And with regard to the geopolitical ramifications of this, every single administration from Washington all the way through to today has been focused on creating a world that is good for American business. Because a world that is good for American business creates opportunities and possibilities for the American people. And creating a world that is safe for American business, creating oil lines so we can have oil from wherever we have to have it, trading relationships, free trade agreements have all been aimed at improving the climate for American business. And when people say, oh, America's in the Middle East for oil, I'll tell you what, if we didn't have the oil that we are dependent on from the Middle East, what would happen to our economy? It would stop tomorrow. The economy would literally stop tomorrow. So we can be really happy that some of the smartest people in the world are doing everything possible to keep the shipping lanes open. So don't ever complain about that. People say we should put windfall taxes on the oil companies. Really? What if the oil companies stop producing oil? Do you know what you have to do to get a gallon of gas to your tank? It has to be brought out from 5,000 feet underground on the other side of the world. It has to be shipped by pipeline hundreds and thousands of miles to ships. The ships have to come all the way to the U.S. They have to go to refineries where they're refracted. They have to then be put through pipelines and then sent to cities and put into pump tracks and then taken to gas stations and put under the ground. And you still pay less for gasoline than you pay for a bottle of water. Can you imagine that? The question, you always have to ask the question, if the oil companies didn't do it, who would do it? And the answer is, thank God they're doing it. When you think about that, they have to invest billions and billions and billions of dollars so you can fill up your tank for less than you pay for a bottle of water. Isn't that interesting? I don't want to get into economics, but you know what the problem with politics is? It's the word politics. It comes from the Greek. Poly means many, and ticks means voracious bloodsuckers. He said, the purpose of a business, he said, is not to make a profit. It is to create and keep a customer. Profit is the result of creating and keeping a customer in a cost-effective way. That's yours and my job, is to create and keep customers in a cost-effective way. Create and keep clients in a cost-effective way. Now, there's only 7 ways that we can increase our profitability. And I want to give these to you briefly, and then I'll come back to them and we'll talk about them. Number 1 is you can increase the number of leads. You can increase the number of leads. In other words, the people who may be prospects for your services. By the way, what is the difference between marketing and selling? I know you're all experts in this, so I'm sorry to ask you such a dumb question, but what is the difference between marketing and selling? Right. The answer is that marketing generates leads. In other words, it tells people that the product or service is available and makes people interested in finding out more, and selling converts the leads into customers. That's the major difference. It's really important to understand that. The purpose of marketing is to make selling unnecessary, or as unnecessary as possible. Really good marketing will bring people in waving the money, ready to buy, tear the product or service out of the vendor's hands. But that doesn't happen that often.